Hello and welcome to another one of Mr. Lang's vlogs. Today we're talking about Manifest Destiny and how those pioneers went west. So follow me along the trail. So let's go over the essential questions for this unit to begin with. First, why did people want to go ahead and move out west? We're going to be answering that throughout this unit here. What steps were necessary for them to prepare for their journey? As this is a very hazardous journey that they have ahead of them, what do they prepare? How do they choose their trails, as there are going to be many trails that go out west? What obstacles did they face, again, going along these trails? How were their lives different when they settled the west finally? And of course, what impact did the migration have on Native Americans and on the environment? These are things we're going to be seeing all today in our virtual classroom. So let's get started, right? Now first, what is Manifest Destiny? What is even this word, this term? Well, to give you an idea, Manifest Destiny is really this term that was coined that encouraged white Americans to settle west. It's actually technically the belief that the U.S. should expand its territory from coast to coast, from sea to shining sea, and that it was our God-given right to go ahead and do that. Now, obviously, we know that's not exactly right to do because, again, there's Native Americans out there that and other cultures that are going to be out there. And of course, we're going to want, the white settlers are going to want all of what is today North America, especially here in the United States. So we see for sure that this is definitely going to be a very controversial move. However, as you can tell by the state of our country, it is a move that we do successfully make, as of course we do reach from sea to shining sea. So let's go over how the U.S. has really come together. You know, we've gone ahead through this entire curriculum so far, and we've actually gone and seen really the expansion of the United States from just 13 original colonies to what we have today. Again, after this unit, the U.S. will be pieced together. So first, let's go over the 13 original colonies. When did we get those colonies? Well, we got them in 1776. Why, of course, when we went ahead and declared our independence from Great Britain. Now, why? Well, we declared our independence from Great Britain, and again, there were many reasons why we went ahead and did that. Of course, that's not where our story stops, though. After we got those 13 original colonies, we fight the Revolutionary War, we win, and when we do, in 1783, with the Treaty of Paris from Great Britain, we now can expand into the Western lands. Now, the Western lands, of course, is right here. We couldn't go past that because of the proclamation line of 1763. Now we can go past that 20 years later. And we do. We start to expand. The Northwest Ordinance even goes ahead and shows how to outline different types of towns, counties, things like that out there as well. So we're expanding, but again, we're nowhere near where we are today. Until we get the Louisiana Purchase. Ooh, that was such a big one right there. And you remember that, right? Again, the Louisiana Purchase, we got it from, we got it in 1803 from Napoleon. If you remember, it was Napoleon in France that does go ahead and sell us this land for a bargain. $15 million for all of that land is incredibly cheap. Napoleon needed money because, of course, he was fighting a war. So, yeah, because of what happened in Hispaniola, if you remember the slave colony that went ahead and uprose and took over, again, what is today Dominican Republic and Haiti, what ends up happening is, of course, they go ahead and he can't really have a good invasion point into the U.S., so he just kind of says, here, take it, take Louisiana. So Jefferson really just wanted to buy New Orleans, which was at the mouth of the Mississippi River. Again, that's definitely one port city you would want. However, he got all of it instead, as of course Napoleon just sold the whole thing. Next, we have Florida. Again, we gained Florida in 1819 from Spain, believe it or not. And you're thinking, huh, that's right, Spain did. Why did Spain give it up? Well, Florida really was not governed well. Criminals were hiding out there. We had pirates down there as well. Again, it was definitely a colony where people, if you wanted to disappear, you'd go to Florida to disappear. Because of that, we really did just go ahead and offer Spain $5 million to go ahead and take it off their hands. And again, for all that it's worth, we got Disney World down there. So for $5 million, that isn't bad at all. It's a good deal. Why weren't Americans happy with the size of their country at this point in their history? I mean, if you look, that's a really big country. In fact, that's bigger than most European nations. So why do you think that, of course, Americans weren't happy? Exactly, because there's still more. Again, it wasn't from sea to shining sea. There's still more out there. And we're pioneers. We want to go ahead and explore and gain more land. And we do just that. Now, during this time, we have Mr. Manifest Destiny himself. Again, James K. Polk. He's going to be our president elected in 1844. One snazzy dresser. And look at that hair, too. Oof. He's going to add more territory to the U.S. than any other president. He does that by any other means, meaning he's going to do it through war and purchasing as well. He is going to die 103 days after his single term. So in 4 years, he's going to grow the U.S. tremendously. And how is it? Well, he does it through gaining a lot more territory, starting with Tejas, or Texas. Now, we got Texas in 1845, technically from Texas. Texas was its own independent nation. In fact, they had gone ahead and got their independence from Mexico. They fought a war. Again, during that, you had to remember the Alamo, right? So, because they became independent in 1836 from Mexico, we weren't ready to have them join the U.S. just yet. Mainly because it was going to come in as a slave state. That's one of the main reasons why they fought the war with Mexico to begin with. Again, Americans had moved down there after a lot of incentive from the Mexicans to, hey, come down, settle this land. They found it was really great, fertile land to go ahead and grow cotton. And so now they are going to go ahead and bring their slaves, even though slavery is illegal in Mexico at that point. And they are going to fight a war to go ahead and gain that land. So what ends up happening is the Northerners didn't want Texas to get into the nation, because if it did, it would be another slave state. Remember, we got to keep that equal, the slave state and the free states. So what ends up happening is finally in 1844, those fears were overcome with the presidential election with Mr. Manifest Destiny himself, James K. Polk. He goes ahead and admits Texas anyway. Now, next up, we got to talk about the Oregon Territory. Now, the Oregon Territory is a very interesting territory for sure back then, because, of course, we technically get it in 1846, and we get it because Great Britain is the one that does go ahead and basically give us part of it. So, if you look, it also expanded. The Oregon Territory was huge. It expands from Oregon into Washington State and even to present-day Canada. And what ended up happening was pretty simple. This land was owned by 4 different nations: Great Britain, Russia, Spain, and the U.S. And so we demanded it. In fact, we even had we were ready to go to war with Britain again. That'd be the 3rd time if we did. And we said, we're going to go 54-40 or fight. It is the actual latitude line of the border of that land. So Britain goes ahead and compromises and says, all right, we'll give you cut the line off at the 49th degree parallel, and we go ahead, the U.S. accepts. Thank goodness, because we were not ready to do another war with Great Britain, that's for sure. Next up, we get the Mexican Cession. Now, the Mexican Cession is one we get very, well, interestingly. We get it in 1848 from, of course, Mexico. And we get it because Polk offered to buy that section of the country of Mexico, and Mexico refused. It's not for sale. And so Polk does go to war with Mexico over it, again, the Mexican-American War. Now, we win this war, and in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which is a fantastic name, the U.S. offers $15 million for that land, and we gain that land, what is current-day California, Nevada, part of Utah, part of Arizona, part of New Mexico, etc. Now, here's an interesting question for you. Why does the U.S. keep offering money, again, for these territories that we're going to gain through war? I mean, look at Florida. We could have just gone ahead and snatched that up. However, we said, hey, here's $5 million. Think about Mexico, right? With the Mexican cession. We gave them $15 million for that. Why do we continue to offer money, though? See? Because that allows them to be in their good graces. That allows them to go ahead and be a little bit more peaceful about it, right? Because if you just take over land, that very much well could lead to, well, more wars. However, if you offer some money, it kind of feels like, okay, I got something else out of it as well. It's a peacekeeping tactic, that's for sure. During this time, we have a lot more maps that are coming out. Maps are important, as that's what's going to guide people along these different trails that we're going to see during this time. All the different trails: the Oregon Trail, the Santa Fe Trail, the California Trail. And of course, the Oregon Trail is probably one of the most famous, and really it might just because of the amazing game, but it also was a huge, well-traveled trail out to the west. It starts in Independence, Missouri, and it's going to basically help those pioneers go west for a better life. Now, the journey on average took around 6 months. It was 3,000 miles, believe it or not, especially because you had to go through the Rocky Mountains. And this is going to be one of the largest mass migrations in U.S. history, where we had anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000 people moving, literally from one part of the country to the next, to start a new life. It's pretty incredible when you think about it. It really is. These pioneers are going to settle the West. You can see here, this is literally the map. The green line, as you can see, is from Independence, Missouri, all the way to what is today right around Portland, Oregon. As you can see, this was one journey that would definitely not be a straight line, because of course there were different obstacles in the way: rivers, valleys, and of course mountains. So it definitely isn't going to be a straight line out there. Nevertheless, it was a journey that for hopefully to bring them to a better life. So the Oregon Trail, parts of it is still there today. You can go to Independence, Missouri, and you can actually see a lot of these, especially some of these ruts that are forever left in the desert from these wagons heading west. There's so many of them heading west. It literally has these ruts where nothing grows, essentially, which is pretty incredible to see. And there you go, this part of the Oregon Trail still there today. You can go ahead and technically walk it. I don't recommend walking the whole thing anymore. That's for sure. We're also going to have a lot of wild animals roam free out west. Altogether, and this is just approximations, we have around 60 million buffalo back then roaming the plains. Again, 1.5 million horses on average out there. Prairie dogs, elk, deer, cougars, Tri-County cougars, and coyotes as well. It's interesting to see all of these different animals that really weren't too interacting. They weren't interacting too much with elsewhere. Buffaloes were mainly in the Midwest and the plains. They're not too much here in the Northeast. So it's very interesting that of course they go ahead and they come upon them. And horses is very fascinating because remember, horses aren't native to North America. So they are literally, these wild horses are from horses over the different generations. And there we go. We have these buffaloes. Look at them. They're still out there. Unfortunately, they're not as much out there as they used to be. Their numbers have dwindled quite a bit because they were hunted often. And of course, for not only just meat, but also for fur. So again, you can see here, there they are. And there's some wild horses out there. Don't want to go near them. They're not friendly. And there's going to be many others out there as well that these pioneers are going to interact with. Again, hopefully they don't interact with the bear though. This is scary if this is coming at you. It's not a good day. And everyone knows this is a roadrunner right here. Roadrunner right up at the top. And that's Tri-County cougar all the way over there. See? Tri-County cougar. Alright, so why do they go west? Well, they wanted a new way of life. They wanted a new start, a new beginning for them and their families. But there's also a little bit of greed in there. I always say in history, follow the money trail. And well, here we have just that. California has the gold rush. In 1849, these settlers are going to head west in search of gold. They're going to be known as the 49ers. Today, again, the football team, the San Francisco 49ers, again, that's where they get their name from. A lot of football teams actually get their names from some historical things. I mean, including the Patriots. So, 1850, most of the gold was already mined. There wasn't much out there to begin with, and it's only, well, the conditions are only getting worse. So again, there's going to be large amounts of poverty, unfortunately, and because of that, California is in need of a lot of help, and hopefully they're going to get it when they apply for statehood. Now, how hazardous are these trails? They are absolutely hazardous. In fact, the Donner Party goes ahead as one of the most, probably the biggest example of just how hazardous these trails really were. The Donner Party goes ahead and they take a shortcut. In fact, they were taking Hastings Pass, which was supposed to be a new shortcut to shave off a couple of hours of their trip. It actually adds an extra 100 miles. And what ends up happening is their axle breaks on their wagon. They camp the night, and that night, 5 feet of snow falls, and they are trapped in the mountains. And when they're trapped in the mountains, they run out of food, they run out of eating their pack animals, and so they resort to cannibalism. Now, the Donner Party does have some survivors, around 30. However, we see in this case that they would do anything to survive, no matter how horrific it really was. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you back in the classroom.